All right, so this go around, we'll be looking at unification of Germany, how Prussia reshaped Europe. Trying to take a look at some more countries and see, just get an overall view of things and learn about some cultures. And yeah, so seems like an interesting subject of how Prussia, the unification of Germany, how it reshaped Europe. Let's take a look, shall we?
In the 18th century, the Holy Roman Empire was approaching its inevitable collapse. This conglomerate of kingdoms, principalities, electorates, and free cities, which varied in their degree of dependence on the emperor, had long retained mostly formal attributes of state unity. Wars, political disputes, and economic conflicts raged among the empire's constituent parts. The confrontation between the mostly influential entities within the empire, the Austrian monarchy and the Kingdom of Prussia, gained particular significance. The Austrian Habsburgs, a dynasty that ruled and held the imperial throne.
The Austrian Habsburgs also wielding quite a bit of influence over the rest of Europe as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Managed to seize vast territories and possessed extensive domains that were not part of the Holy Roman Empire. To some extent, the Habsburgs sought to distance themselves from the internal affairs of the empire and pursued their own separate policies aligned with Austrian interests. Similarly, the Hohenzollern dynasty, which transformed Prussia into a powerful kingdom, also held significant territories outside the Holy Roman Empire. This allowed local rulers to independently engage in European politics. The Habsburgs sought to maintain their dominant position, while the Hohenzollerns aimed to challenge the hegemony of the imperial dynasty in Central Europe. This rivalry led to military conflicts between Austria and Prussia, the most notable of which were the three Silesian Wars. Each of these wars was part of the larger global conflicts, the War of the Austrian Succession and the 7 Years' War. Prussia consistently emerged victorious in its confrontations with Austria. If you wish to learn more about both wars, we have already covered them on the channel. Links can be found in the description.
By the way, if you like this video, go check the channel out. The channel is history mapped out. Got a lot of good subject matter on the channel itself. Definitely take and go get them a subscription and watch a couple of the videos, support the channel. Really good stuff on there. So, just looking through the titles look like some really good subject matter. These as well look like to be two very good videos to watch.
Toward the end of the 18th century, Austria and Prussia participated in the partitions of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, allowing the Habsburgs and the Hohenzollerns to further expand their territories. Later, despite their own ambitions, they united in the face of a common enemy, the French Empire. It was the Napoleonic Wars and Napoleon Bonaparte himself that marked the end of the Holy Roman Empire. When the last emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, Francis II Habsburg, learned that his rival, Napoleon Bonaparte, planned to crown himself Emperor of France, he decided to act preemptively. In the summer of 1804, he proclaimed himself Emperor of Austria as Francis I. After this, the title of Holy Roman Emperor definitively became secondary. In 1805, Napoleon Bonaparte defeated Francis Habsburg and his Russian allies at the Battle of Austerlitz. The following year, under the protection of the French Emperor, the Confederation of the Rhine, a coalition of German states, was established. Its members then declared their secession from the Holy Roman Empire. Napoleon then issued an ultimatum to Francis. He had to renounce the title of Holy Roman Emperor or face a new war with Austria, initiated by the protector of the Confederation of the Rhine, Napoleon himself. That same year, Francis abdicated the title and officially dissolved the Holy Roman Empire. Ultimately, Napoleon was defeated. We have also covered this on the channel with a link available in the description. The Congress of Vienna, 1814 to 1815, not only established a new order in Europe, but also facilitated the creation of the German Confederation, a successor to the Holy Roman Empire. This confederation consisted...
That's another thing where I've taken to do a video on, because it's been so long, because I know I remember reading about the Holy Roman Empire and the history of it and everything like that, but I just my mind draws a blank. So that's something at some point in time, because it deals, it's part of European history. We're gonna have to take a look at. It's man, I feel like a dunce sitting here going shit. I can't remember anything.
Of independent German-speaking states in Central Europe. The head of the Confederation was the Austrian Emperor Francis I Habsburg, and its territories roughly corresponded to those of the dissolved Holy Roman Empire. Moreover, the most influential members of the new German Union were once again Austria and Prussia. However, a significant portion of their lands lay outside the boundaries of the German Confederation. Francis I Habsburg proclaimed himself Emperor of Austria. Napoleon dissolved the Holy Roman Empire and lost the Napoleonic Wars, and at the Congress of Vienna, European diplomats established the German Confederation. However, none of this altered the nature of relations between the Austrian monarchy and the Kingdom of Prussia, which continued their rivalry. The long-standing existence within such an ephemeral political entity—
I say it wasn't until just before if I'm not mistaken, it wasn't until just before like World War One that like everything was unified, right?
as the Holy Roman Empire did not change the reality that the German and German-speaking populations of Central Europe had been divided for centuries and would eventually come to be united into a single state. The question was only which of the powerful European dynasties would succeed in creating a unified German state. The rivalry between Austria and Prussia, the Habsburgs and the Hohenzollerns, became the foundation for the emergence of two models of resolving the so-called German question. The Austrian option was the Greater German path to German unification. Vienna would be the capital. The ruling dynasty would be the Habsburgs, the former emperors of the Holy Roman Empire. The Prussian option, or Lesser German path, chose Berlin as the capital and the Hohenzollerns as the ruling dynasty. But Austria and the Habsburgs would not be part of the new German state. The Austrian monarchy was a multinational and multi-ethnic state formation. Not without reason was this empire often referred—
Damn, Germans, Czechoslovaks, Ukrainians, Hungarians, Romanians. It's quite the collection of peoples there under one banner.
to as patchwork.
A lot of a lot of folks become different, quite a few different countries.
Among all the other peoples, of course, there were Germans, but more than half of the population was composed of Slavic peoples: Czechs, Slovaks, Poles, Ukrainians, Slovenes, Croats, and Serbs. Additionally, a significant portion of the population consisted of Hungarians, Romanians, and Italians. This diverse composition, in the opinion of many Germans, made the Lesser German path more appealing. Under the Greater German path of unification, the new state would not be predominantly German from a national perspective.
And that makes sense. You want to take and have, a singular identity for the people of your country. I mean, it's one thing to take and, I say singular identity. I'm not talking about like just one straight up, because normally when a nation is formed, especially when you got situations like this, or kind of just about any situation in general in history, you've normally got multiple different people that will take and make up, but the bulk majority is, like in this case, would be the Germans, and it's you got, but that, like France is the Franks, so you got that. You might have little pockets of people that take and round out things, but for the most part, you want the bulk to be okay. You got the German Confederation, Prussia. Everybody sees themselves as German for the most part. You got another faction over here that's made up of 20 different groups of people. You think maybe things are a little bit get diluted as far as national identity is concerned at that point.
The first attempt to unite Germany took place during the revolutions of 1848 to 1849. Known as the Springtime of Nations, a wave of liberal democratic revolutions swept across Europe, shaking outdated monarchical norms in many countries. This was the largest revolutionary wave in European history, and it also impacted the German Confederation and the Austrian Empire. One of the main issues of the German Revolution was the idea of creating a unified German state. In March 1848, in the free city of Frankfurt, where emperors of the Holy Roman Empire had once been crowned, the first pan-German parliament began its session. This was the Frankfurt National Assembly, which included delegates from all the states of the German Confederation, as well as representatives from German-populated regions of the Austrian Empire. At the Church of St. Paul, where the parliamentary session took place, the following state-building issues were discussed: the Lesser German or Greater German path to German unification, forms of government, monarchy, elective monarchy, or republic, and forms of political structure, federation or centralized state. Due to the concurrent Austrian Revolution in the Habsburg monarchy, during which the government had already published a draft Austrian constitution, the Prussian option gained significant advantage and became the working option. Ultimately, the Frankfurt National Assembly prepared a draft constitution. The new Germany was to become a constitutional monarchy, with the role of ruler assigned to the Prussian king, who had received the hereditary title of Emperor of the Germans. This proposal even received considerable support, but it met unexpected opposition. Friedrich Wilhelm IV refused to become emperor, as he believed that the representatives of this parliament had no right to make such a proposal to him.
Jesus, it's so. Get a parliament together of people with representatives for different territories within the within what you want to take and consider Germany. All these different little municipalities and kingdoms and stuff like that. And they're like, yeah, we want this, and then yeah, no, I don't agree. Like, that had to be like, hey, come on now, what the hell? Help us out. I'm sure, though, you also probably had people that are probably a little bit tight, especially with there being revolutions like currently going on in Austria, but also revolutions that took place throughout the German Federation, I guess, little states and stuff like that that were in it. You probably had people that were probably a little bit tired of being under anyone that considered themselves or called themselves emperor or monarch, king, or what have you. So I can see kind of both sides of that. It's one of those things where it'd be like, yeah, no. So the fact that he didn't agree, we're about to hear the reasons he didn't agree, but
Representatives of this parliament had no right to make such a proposal to him. Soon, the revolution escalated into an uprising. The German Confederation ceased to exist for 2 years, and the Frankfurt National Assembly attempted to unite the German states and create the German Empire, but ultimately failed. The German Revolution was suppressed by Austria and Prussia, which once again demonstrated their ability to unite against a common enemy when necessary. In 1850, the German Confederation was restored. In 1861, Friedrich Wilhelm IV died. The following year, his younger brother and successor, Wilhelm I, appointed Otto von Bismarck as the Prime Minister of Prussia. Bismarck immediately began implementing the Lesser German path to unification into practice. Unlike the parliamentarians of the Frankfurt National Assembly, the Iron Chancellor saw the military strength of the Kingdom of Prussia as the main means of implementing the Lesser German path to unification. In one of his first speeches in his new position, Otto von Bismarck declared, "Germany must take from Prussia not its liberalism, but its power. Prussia must unite and concentrate its strength at a favorable moment, which has already been missed several times." The borders of Prussia, according to the Treaty of Vienna, do not favor the formation of a healthy, viable state. The great questions of our time must not be resolved through speeches and decisions by majority. This was the great mistake of 1848 and 1849, but through iron and blood.
So he's ready to take and forcefully create a greater state of Germany, or a greater state of German people. I mean, You've already seen that the fact that, probably a lot of speeches have been made. You had the, parliaments and everything like that, the attempt to create an emperor or whatever. And he's like, yeah, no, the time for talk is over. Piss on it.
This speech by the Prussian Prime Minister later became famous worldwide, and the phrase iron and blood became a popular description of his foreign policy in the pursuit of German unification. It all began with the Second Schleswig War against Denmark. In the First Schleswig War, the Danish side managed to retain control over the duchies of Schleswig, Holstein, and Lauenburg, whose German-speaking population had organized uprisings against Danish rule and appealed to Prussia for assistance. Schleswig and Holstein had been in a personal union with Denmark for centuries, which is why the Danish king had been the duke of both territories for many years. At the same time, both duchies were members of the German Confederation. After the First Schleswig War...
Wait, so they were in alliance or... Yeah, it's in alliance with Denmark, but also part of... So it sounds like it might be a little bit of split loyalties there. Apparently they see themselves more as German if they're part of the German Federation.
This special status of the duchies was confirmed. However, less than a year before the outbreak of the new war, Christian IX, who had recently become the King of Denmark, signed the so-called November Constitution. Schleswig was to have a shared parliament with Denmark. The Prussian side viewed this as a violation of the agreements regarding the status of the Schleswig Duchy and as an encroachment on its affiliation with the German Confederation.
Well, I mean, that's basically trying to take and fold them into, it's an underhanded, probably seen as an underhanded attempt to take and fold them into Denmark itself. I mean, hey, we know you see yourself as, we know you're part of the German Federation, but you get to have, shared parliament with us here. Definitely that definitely sounds like an attempt to kind of gain some new land.
Prussia secured the support of the Habsburg monarchy, its competitor in the unification of Germany. As early as 1863, they occupied Holstein and issued an ultimatum to Denmark, which was rejected. In the winter of 1864, Prussian and Austrian troops entered the territory of the Schleswig Duchy. Under the command of the experienced Prussian Field Marshal Friedrich Graf von Wrangel, the united German army achieved victory after victory. By the summer of the same year, Prussia and Austria had occupied all of Jutland, forcing Denmark to accept an unfavorable armistice. According to the terms of the Treaty of Vienna, the Danish crown ceded the duchies of Schleswig, Holstein, and Lauenburg, which came under the joint control of the Hohenzollerns and the Habsburgs. Denmark lost approximately 40% of its territory, and the overall population of the country decreased from 2.5 million to 1.5 million. The second...
Ooh, that's a hell of a blow. That's losing 1 million, citizens. Woo. It's, well, I mean... FAFO, I guess.
Schleswig War is still considered a national trauma for Denmark. In the following year, Prussia and Austria signed the Convention of Gastein. According to its terms, Schleswig became a Prussian territory, while Holstein became Austrian. Austria sold its rights to Lauenburg. The smallest of the three duchies was purchased by Prussia for 2.5 million Danish rigsdaler. Subsequently, disputes over control of Schleswig and Holstein became the trigger for the Austro-Prussian War, which is also frequently referred to as the 7 Weeks' War, the Fraternal War, or simply the German War. In this military confrontation, each side secured the support of several member states of the German Confederation. However, Prussia had an additional ally, the Kingdom of Italy. The presence of this ally directly influenced the course of events. The Austro-Italian War began almost immediately after the 7 Weeks' War and forced the Habsburgs to fight on 2 fronts. In the Austro-Prussian War, the decisive moment came at the famous Battle of Sadova, also known as the Battle of Königgrätz, which was, at the time, the second largest battle in human history. It was this battle that truly determined the outcome of the long-standing Austro-Prussian rivalry. The Austrian forces, commanded by Ludwig von Benedek, the commander of the Northern Army, established their positions southeast of the village of Sedova, near the town of Königgrätz. The Habsburg Empire's army consisted of about 210,000 soldiers. The Prussian forces, on the other hand, were divided into three main groups. The Elbe army was stationed to the west of the enemy, commanded by Eberhard Herwart von Bittenfeld. The First Army was located to the north, under the leadership of Frederick Charles of Prussia, the king's nephew. The Second Army, although not yet fully present at the time, was en route and commanded by Frederick William, the king's son and successor.
That's two opportunities to get flanked right there by the Prussian forces. That's a dangerous little gamble, right? Or that's a dangerous little spot to be in right there, because if you get flanked, you know, you're fighting head on, and if you get flanked on either side, that's a good way to get encircled and really give yourself no outs on anything.
Overall, the Prussian forces numbered approximately 220,000 soldiers, with Helmuth von Moltke overseeing the general command of the entire Prussian military operation. The strategic positioning of these forces and their coordination would play a decisive role in the outcome of the Battle of Sedova. The Elbe Army and the First Army of Prussia simultaneously began military operations against Austria's Northern Army. Despite the numerical superiority of the Austrian forces, due to the absence of the Prussian Second Army, the pressure from the advancing Prussians and the looming risk of encirclement compelled Ludwig von Benedek to order a retreat toward Königgrätz. This withdrawal turned out to be disastrous.
No. You've got this army over here. They've got to take and withdraw. If they're headed in this direction, that's a cutoff. Again, that just sounded like a non-winnable, like not a very good situation whatsoever.
For the Austrians, what began as a strategic retreat soon degenerated into a chaotic and disorganized rout. Despite this, the Prussian forces were unable to effectively pursue the retreating Austrian army. This failure allowed the Austrian troops to regroup and re-establish their positions near Königgrätz. The events leading up to the Battle of Königgrätz.
Okay, I was thinking they'd wind up getting cut off from the back end, but
the decisive battle of the Austro-Prussian War were characterized by strategic maneuvering, missteps during retreat, and Prussian operational efficiency, which would ultimately determine the outcome of the war.
Well, militarily, Prussia was a powerhouse. So it doesn't matter how, what the size they were, and they're smaller than Austria, Hungary. They were known for, they had a strong army. They had strong military leadership. So the fact that they're, very efficient in what they were doing and in the maneuvers and the tactics that they use, it's not very surprising whatsoever.
Ludwig von Benedek was shocked by the losses the Austrian army suffered during its retreat. In response, he urgently asked Emperor Franz Joseph I to negotiate peace with Prussia. However, after receiving a refusal, he was forced to direct his forces toward Königgrätz and prepare for a general battle. Although the Austrians still had a significant numerical advantage for a time, allowing them to conduct counterattacks and resist the advancing Prussians, the situation rapidly worsened upon the arrival of Friedrich Wilhelm and his nearly 100,000-strong Second Army. The combined pressure of the two Prussian armies ultimately led to the defeat of the Austrian forces. The battle ended in a devastating loss for Austria, with total casualties, dead, wounded, and captured, amounting to 40,000. The Prussian losses were far smaller, totaling only 10,000 killed and wounded. After the defeat in the Austro-Prussian War, Emperor Franz Joseph I was forced to enter peace negotiations with Prussia. Otto von Bismarck viewed the Habsburg monarchy as a potential future ally, so he persuaded King Wilhelm I and the Prussian military command to refrain from a complete defeat and humiliation of Austria. Under the terms of the Treaty of Prague, 1866.
That's a bit of diplomacy that, just being like, hey, look, still work together in the future and everything like that. Let's not take and make them, let's not embarrass them in negotiations. That's a bit of diplomacy that really is kind of, because I'm sure they probably could have raked them over the coals.
Austria ceded the Duchy of Holstein to Prussia. Italy was granted the region of Venetia, including the city of Venice. As a result of this treaty, the Habsburgs almost entirely lost their influence over German lands. The Hohenzollerns, Prussian ruling house, secured their dominant position in German affairs. Following this, Prussia established the North German Confederation, which included a number of small German states. At the same time, the Old German Confederation, headed by Franz Joseph I, was dissolved. In 1867, the Austrian Empire transformed into the Austro-Hungarian Empire through the so-called Austro-Hungarian Compromise. This compromise was a response to the ongoing crisis within the Habsburg monarchy, which was fueled by military defeats, the Hungarian Revolution of 1848 to 1849, and the rise of nationalist movements among the Slavic peoples within the empire. The defeat of Austria by Prussia, combined with this compromise between Franz Joseph I and the Hungarian national movement, marked the complete abandonment of the great German unification path by the Habsburgs. The Prussian king Wilhelm I and Otto von Bismarck now had only one opponent to defeat before finally uniting Germany in the form of the Lesser German solution, the Second French Empire, led by Napoleon III Bonaparte, the nephew of Napoleon I. The pretext for the war was a diplomatic scandal and the so-called Ems Dispatch, yet there were also more fundamental reasons for the conflict. France sought to maintain its dominance in continental Europe and opposed the creation of a unified Germany, while Prussia was determined to complete what has been started.
I mean, I get it. I mean, you get the unification of these different states and, small little kingdoms that border your own country, which is quite large, but you get all and especially being headed by, Prussians. I mean, that's going to take and pose itself as a threat 100%, because that's, the more unification happens, well, that's more people folded in, and it's not a good thing whatsoever for you if you're, France or Napoleon III.
The most famous battle of the Franco-Prussian War was the Battle of Sedan, which ended with the capture of French Marshal Patrice de Maquemont, Emperor Napoleon III Bonaparte, and over 100,000 French soldiers. For the Prussian general Helmut von Moltke the Elder, it was another swift triumph, mirroring his victory at the Battle of Sadowa. On September 4, 1870, the Second French Empire ceased to exist. Napoleon III was deposed in absentia, and on the same day, the French Third Republic was proclaimed. The Battle of Sedan was a crushing victory for the Germans, but it did not end the war. Still, it cleared the way for Prussian troops to advance on the French capital. The siege of Paris lasted 4 months and ended with the city's surrender. On January 18, 1871, in the Palace of Versailles, the Prussian aristocracy and military elite proclaimed Wilhelm I as German emperor, thereby establishing the German Empire. Otto von Bismarck, who led the process of unifying Germany, became the first imperial chancellor. Under the terms of the Treaty of Frankfurt in 1871, the French regions of Alsace and Lorraine were ceded to the German Empire, and France officially recognized William I of the House of Hohenzollern as German emperor. Prussia, William I, and the great Otto von Bismarck solved the German question of the 19th century. The Kingdom of Prussia transformed into the unified, mighty German Empire. During the unification process of Germany via the Lesser German solution, the Hohenzollern dynasty annexed more than a quarter of Denmark and directly influenced France's transformation from an empire into a republic. The Habsburgs, meanwhile, were left with their patchwork Austrian monarchy, which, 4 years before Germany's unification, had already become the dualistic Austro-Hungarian Empire.
If I'm not mistaken, the Austro-Hungarian monarchy, I'm trying to remember, because it falls apart at some point in time as well, and part of that takes and gets, eaten up too.
To commemorate the 3 victorious wars, on the 3rd anniversary of the triumph over the French at the Battle of Sedan, Emperor Wilhelm I ordered the construction of the famous Berlin Victory Column in 1873. Although the unification of Germany was translated into reality via the Lesser German solution, the pan-Germanism idea did not disappear entirely and continued to persist. After the German Empire and the Austro-Hungarian Empire were defeated in World War I, discussions about a possible unification with Austria resurfaced in the newly formed Weimar Republic. Later, when Adolf Hitler became the Chancellor, the German Reich annexed Austria in 1938 in accordance to the pan.
Well, I was off a little bit on that. Didn't realize it wasn't until after World War One that some of that had happened, and it's due to the annexing was due to Hitler. Wow.
Pan-Germanism ideas.
Interesting video. So I was, let's see, 1910. So I was 40 years off. I said, I thought it was closer to World War One, which I mean, still, being right around 1874. So it's, yeah, right around 40 years. So, I was off a little bit, but that's still closer to World War One than not. The fact that you had the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, and then also the Prussian Empire. The fact that the Austrian-Hungarian is how it, to me, in my opinion, it sounds like, okay, granted, you got all these different little nation states or free spots of Germany. You got kind of you want to take and fold that all in for a unified German state, but you've got all this back behind you, Hungary and Romania and everything else like that. I can understand the reason why the lesser plan, or the Prussian plan basically, is what wound up being more popular, especially whenever you consider, after some talks and everything like that, things kind of stagnated before Parliament happened, and in between all this happening, you got these different revolutions and stuff like that. I might take a look at a video on the Holy Roman Empire. Looks like there's one right here. The Holy Roman Empire itself. Because everything starts in Europe, just so much stuff starts hundreds of years before everything really kind of culminates for some places. Like I know with France and their, getting in bed with the Catholic Church, and basically the conversion and the unification of the Franks themselves and everything of that nature, and aligning with Pope and the Vatican, and just the way that it impacted and influenced so much of what come after it, just in Europe in general, especially for France and parts all the way into Germany, if I'm not mistaken. But like it's really so much stuff that you see these nations and these countries that are formed, and get 900, 1,000, 1,500 years worth of history leading up to all that shit, and it's lands change hands 4, 5, 6 different times, and these things, these monarchies spring up, and they'll be around for a couple hundred years, and they get taken over and everything like that. So for this, and Prussia, I'm not surprised with the battles that happen with Prussia and stuff like that or with Austria, that they won, because that's one of the things they were definitely known for, is military might. Very interesting video. Again, a nice little brief overview. It's only 22 minutes, but still very, very good content in my opinion. And look, if there's anything wrong in here, please, by all means, if you've got a better video for whatever information, let me know. Like, give me the channel name and the video title or whatever, so that way I can go check it out or whatever. I just react to stuff. So if there's something wrong, I'm not going to know beforehand. I see the subject matter looks interesting to me. I'm going to react to it. If it's wrong, fill me in on what's wrong. Not, just let me know, hey, they're wrong on this. This is what actually happened. That I learned a whole lot with y'all taking and doing stuff like that. Just the whole bits of commentary I get. Well, this is bullshit. That doesn't really help nobody, including me. So I enjoy looking at history and either relearning some stuff, or kind of And this was a lot of relearning because Otto von Bismarck very much, that's that's a name that I definitely studied while I was in high school over 20 years ago. So I knew he was chancellor and everything of that nature. And I just, with the unification, that like there's so much stuff that I just forget. So it's nice to take and see stuff like this. Nice to watch it. And in my own time, sometimes try to find something a little bit more in depth. But yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed this. Y'all be good to each other. Love yourselves. Peace.